Hey, that's right. Welcome in. It is time for another edition of the Magic Valley Prepcast here on IdahoSports.com, talking the big stories from the Magic Valley from the past week that was. My name is Brandon Baney, but the guy you really tuned in to hear from is our Magic Valley resident and expert, Scott Burton. Scotty, what's going on?
Brandon, here we are another week and a lot of action. It's amazing how it flies by so quickly.
Yeah, kind of like life. The years just pile up, and I've had to come with grips lately, Scott. I'm starting to get more grays in the old beard, and I'm like, gosh, when did this happen?
Yeah, I feel you. I'm salt and pepper pretty much all over the place. But then again, I'm old, dude. I am like ancient, about ready to be put out to pasture old.
Yeah,
or I'm getting retirement statements in the mail.
Tom Selleck is knocking on your door trying to tell you to,
sign
up for AARP.
Yeah. Oh, I get those too, which are nice. And it's just like, really, are you serious right now? And then I kind of lean out the window and tell kids to get off the lawn, and then I feel much better.
For sure. Well, you can tune in to this Magic Valley Prepcast a couple of different ways. If you want to see Scott and I age in real time, you can, of course, watch this on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel, Facebook page, and X account. If you're not quite ready to take the plunge and see what we look like, you can always listen as well at IdahoSports.com. All of our prepcasts are directly to the left on the homepage. You can also listen to this wherever you download and subscribe to your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, etc. For those that are watching on the video side, we have these little name plates that have our names, just in case you forget who we are, Brandon Baney and Scott Burton. Scott always likes to put kind of a nickname or some kind of moniker next to his name. And this week it is Never Forget, Scott. I'm guessing that's because we are recording this on September 11th, 2024.
Yep. Yeah, certainly are. And, again, it's just one of those days that you just kind of, value your freedom, your country, your life, your family. I mean, it really does put things in perspective. And, the further away that we get from 2011, in high school, I mean, we're dealing with kids that don't even know what that was. I mean, they weren't even alive, so hopefully we've got coaches and educators out there that are still kind of educating about that, because you never know when something like that could happen.
Yep. Back all the way back in 2001, Scott, that was now over 20 years ago. I mean, 23 years ago. I've never asked you this, Scott. Where were you on September 11th, 2001?
It's funny, those days you don't ever forget where you were. And I was, because it happened in the morning, and during our time, it was still probably, I don't know, 7 o'clock, between 7:30 a.m. And I was just getting ready to leave the house for school. And, I was teaching, and I remember having my TV on in the bedroom, and I was whatever. And the next thing you know, here comes that special report type thing that pops up. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And so I just remember where I was standing. I was looking at this TV, and then I just booked it to school because I knew there was going to be a whole lot of buzz going on. And so I flipped the TV on in school, and I remembered kids and who they were standing there just, watching in awe of this, not believing what they were seeing. And so, yeah, that day just really does stand out. It's just incredible.
Yeah, I was a 7th grader. I was in junior high school. We were getting ready for school, and typically getting ready for school involved it was a sprint. Like, hey, shower real quick, throw something down for breakfast, get in the car, let's go. And we never had the TV on because that was a distraction. Well, my mom had the TV on. And so I was like, oh, this must be something important. And it was kind of right after, because we live, in the mountain time zone. So this all occurred very early in the morning in the mountain time zone. So we kind of saw that and then had to go to school right away. And then my first couple of periods, we didn't have TVs in every room. We had the old TV you had to wheel in on the cart. So that was kind of a premium item. So we were kind of in the dark for the first couple of periods of the school day. And finally word got out around lunch about what had happened. And I remember I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Like, that can't happen here in America.
Yeah.
It did. And you're right, Scott. It's important to never forget, because we now have an entire generation of kids that weren't alive or were very young when this happened. And that's history in general. Like, we just can't, there's lots of people out there that are trying to almost erase history. America is not a perfect country. America's had bad history. They've had good history, but it's important to document the history. You can't just cancel the bad parts of America's story or the dark times of America's story. You have to have the whole story so we learn from it.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And it's one of those things that you see when you start talking about like World War II. People just aren't kind of into that anymore. And it's not about the appreciation of history anymore, because if you don't and you try to eradicate it, then all of a sudden it's going to repeat itself. And like you said, nobody's perfect. Nobody is, but we can't keep erasing what we don't like. And everybody's got a blemish on their record. You can't run from it. You acknowledge it and you become better, but you don't forget it. And that's kind of the sad part of where a lot of our country's gone, is we just start tearing things down that we don't like. We start, erasing things just because it was a bad time. Well, you know what? Those were standards that were not the same now. So you can't apply today's criteria to yesterday's standards. It's not the same. Remember it, appreciate what was there, learn from what you can, but don't ever forget it. And whether it's good or bad, never forget, because you can always learn.
Yep. That's one of the big regrets I have recently, is my wife and I were in New Orleans, and they have the World War II museum down there in New Orleans, which is incredible.
Yeah, I'm headed there over Thanksgiving, by the way.
Oh, no way. Have you ever been before?
No, but I'm headed over Thanksgiving.
You're going to be blown away. It will take you, you could go a whole week and still not really cover everything in depth that you need to there. So when you first walk in, there is an actual World War II veteran, and you can go talk to him. He's, sitting at a table, and we said, well, we'll get him on the way out, because, we're going to go in and see everything, and then we'll loop back around, and then we'll go talk to him. Well, by the time we got through, time had run out, and the museum was closing, and he was gone, and we never had that opportunity. That's the one thing I wish I could go back, is go talk to him first and then go see the rest of the museum. But, oh man, you're going to have a great time down there, Scott. A lot of history in there.
It's funny you say that too, because I was just playing in a golf tournament this past weekend, and afterwards I was sitting with this guy and we were talking and blah blah blah, and he brought up the World War II museum in New Orleans just out of the blue, and I had, I knew something was there, but I really didn't know. And now you're the second guy to bring it up within like 2 days. It's like, I gotta go. So yeah, we're headed down there over Thanksgiving break, on the way back from going down to Florida, but catching on the way back, stopping in New Orleans for a few days, catching the Rams and Saints game, and then going to the museum, staying in a haunted hotel. It's going to be awesome.
Cool. It does sound like a really fun trip for sure. Well, I didn't think we'd get this deep or this heavy, on the Magic Valley Prepcast, but hey, we hit record, and sometimes that's the way the conversation goes. More somber notes to talk about, and then we'll get into kind of what happened sports wise, but sports almost takes a back seat. The number one story that is gripping the Magic Valley this week is the tragic passing of Lainey Morgan, a student at Twin Falls High School, student athlete, only 16 years old, passed away after a car accident this week. Scott, I know this is a story that has sent ripples and in some places tidal waves throughout the Magic Valley.
It really has. And we'll, maybe get into it a little bit more down the road, but for now, it's one of those things that you just shake your head about, and it just makes you sick to your stomach that, life could be taken from you at any moment. And we just don't realize that sometimes with some of the decisions that we make, or the people that we take advantage of, or the opportunities that we don't take. It could be gone in a moment. And it's a tragedy. And it is the one thing that's kind of gripping everybody around here right now, because it does make you step back and think.
Yeah, it does for sure. And so on next week's show, we will talk more about Lainey and her life and what Twin Falls High School and some of the other high schools are doing to kind of celebrate her, honor her, those types of things. It was just too quick of a turnaround. I mean, it's still very raw. It's still very fresh. This happened only a couple of days ago. And so everybody is still kind of processing it. So we wanted to give it some time to breathe also. Next week, we will explore this more deeply. But for this week, hard to transition out of that story to what happened on the field. That almost seems irrelevant by comparison. But a lot of times that is the best way you can honor somebody, is to keep excelling, living your life the way you do. And so for Twin Falls High School, Scott, they did get some good news before the bad news this week on the soccer field. The boys soccer team at Twin Falls High School is off to an incredible start this season. And along the way, they beat Jerome High School for the first time in a couple of years. I mean, it was a pretty significant breakthrough. First time since 2018 that Twin Falls had defeated Jerome. They won 1-0 last week in Jerome. It was a big win for the Bruins.
Oh, huge. This conference that we talked about is going to be, dramatically different with the exit of Canyon Ridge. And what that does is it opens up that second spot to somebody else, because this conference really has been dominated over the last couple of years by two teams, and it's Canyon Ridge and Wood River. Jerome about 3 years ago had a 3-year run at it. Then they had to reload, so they're kind of reloading. But anyway, there's that void left by Canyon Ridge, and so what that does is it breathes life into teams like Twin. It says, hey, we actually have a shot here to get to state. And one of the things they have to do is they've got to beat Jerome. And they went over to their house and did it. And it was a game that, Jerome controlled the clock. The time of possession was just lopsided in Jerome's favor, shots on goal, etc. But it was one of those games that you just couldn't get anything going, and those are going to happen. But, congrats to Twin. That's a shot in the arm for them as far as their confidence goes.
Yeah, it was the winning goal in a 1-0 win came in the second half with just over 30 minutes remaining. Xanda Luke scored for the Bruins. That 1-0 lead holds up. And you could tell after the game, Twin Falls had a lot of emotion built up, and they kind of let it out. And all right, we did it. Let's go. Sky's kind of the limit for this Twin Falls team. I think when you look at the conference hierarchy, Wood River is still kind of the favorite out in front, but why not Twin? Why, a win over Jerome? They're 1-0 in league play. It's a good start.
It certainly is. And just like we talked about, it's like, why not Twin? Canyon Ridge is gone. Who's going to step up and take their place? We know Wood River's going to be there, because Wood River is just, they're solid. I mean, Wood River's off to a 5-1 start right now. And then after that, it's going to be who wants that second berth. And I think a lot of teams just sort of maybe thought Jerome was going to be an automatic to that. They're at 5-1 right now. Their only loss is to Twin, but Twin, has got maybe something to say about that. So it's going to be interesting when we get more into conference play, how this conference shakes up, because right now, obviously, Wood River is in the driver's seat. Who is going to challenge them? And that could be anybody.
Scott, I'm working on our first coaches poll of the season for boys soccer. Should drop right as we're done with this Prepcast. There are 3 teams from the Great Basin Conference in the top 5 of our first coaches poll of the year. Wood River at number 1, Mountain Home at number 2, Jerome tied with Century for the 3rd spot in the poll. Nowhere in there is Jerome, even though they're 2-0. They have wins over Jerome and Burley. And Twin Falls probably prefers it that way. They'll continue to kind of lie in hiding.
Yeah, and they will. I mean, Twin is sitting at a 2-1-2 record. Those 2 ties aren't, helping them in the rankings, but if the top 5 is dominated by this conference, then, Twin's got every right to say, well, why not us? But that speaks volumes to the quality of soccer that is in this Great Basin Conference. And it's been that way for, several years. I mean, we're talking about the defending champs out of this conference, and that's Wood River, and they're back strong again, this year. And it was just a few years ago, or 2-3 years ago, that Jerome was, into the championship game. And so it's just these teams in this conference really are dominant at soccer, and that's going to be evidenced by the top 5 coming out after this.
Yeah, lots to stay still in that Great Basin boys soccer conference race for sure. We did this on the North Idaho Prepcast this week, Scott. We had a lot of stories revolving around Coeur d'Alene High. So we kind of had like Coeur d'Alene High bad, Coeur d'Alene High good. So we kind of have the Jerome bad boys soccer team stubs their toe against Twin Falls, but Jerome good. The annual Jerome Invitational volleyball tournament was this past Saturday. It was a rousing success, Scott.
Oh, it was so much fun. That particular day was chaos, for me, as I'm jumping around between the volleyball tournament, a soccer game, the big old booster scramble, golf scramble out at the course, auctions, the whole 9 yards. And so I had to rely on our coaches to really drive the bus when it came to this tournament. And so I can't even say anything without acknowledging Guy Stubbs, Jess Reynoso. Those are the two that really made this tournament work. And it was a really fun time. And it's a tournament that people love to come to because, volleyball's different. You can just squeeze so many things into one day and play so many different teams. And that's kind of what's happened. Unfortunately, we had a 16-team bracket all set up. We were maxed out. And then we lost 3 teams at the very last second. One had a scheduling conflict. They counted their schedule and went, oh, crap, we're over the limit. Didn't see that one coming. And then the other 2 were actually on their way from Eastern Idaho. And then there was this giant wreck on the freeway that just stopped everything for an hour and a half, 2 hours. And they would have never made it. So they had to turn around and go back home. And so we had to just on the fly redo the brackets at the last second. But, overall, it worked out well. So
what did we have? We had pool play where you so there was 12 teams or 13 teams
13.
instead of 16.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of probably went 4 teams per pool and maybe one pool with 5, I'm guessing. And then from there, you had a gold bracket and a silver bracket. Did you have a bronze bracket or was it just the 2?
Nope, just the 2 brackets. And so based on your pool play and how you did, you were placed into one of the 2 brackets, and then it went into straight tournament play.
And I'm guessing gold probably had 7 teams. Silver bracket had 6.
That's about right. Yep.
So in terms of teams that actually were there, Scott, I know there was a lot of Magic Valley teams there. Jerome was there. Who were some of the other Magic Valley teams that were there?
Jerome was there. Oakley was there. Lighthouse was there. And it was good to see them just because, all of the stuff that they've been kind of going through and, especially not having a football team and their sports are kind of in question with participation. And so it was good to see them there. And let's see, I'm bringing up.
I know Murtaugh was there.
Murtaugh was there. And
Canyon Ridge?
No.
Wendell?
Yeah. Boy, you would put me on the spot, and I had it. I had it. And let's see. I'll just keep talking, and I'm going to find it.
Yeah, no, that's fine. The big highlights were a team from East Idaho actually won the tournament. Sugar Salem took the gold bracket. They beat they beat Murtaugh in the gold bracket finals. So for Murtaugh, it was a pretty good showing for a program that's got to replace quite a bit from graduation. Oakley ended up taking the silver bracket in competition there. So again, that's pretty impressive for a 2A school to win the silver bracket at the Jerome Invite. Scott, did I give you enough time?
Yeah, got it. It's funny because I have all this stuff up on in my office computer, and then but I can't get StreamYard through school, right?
Right.
So I gotta shut it all down, race home, get into the man cave and shoot. And then sometimes I forget to bring stuff with me. Shocker. And this was one of them. So yes, it was a really good field, Buell, Wendell, Nampa, Declo. We even had an academy school out of Fruitland, TVCA. out of Fruitland called, and they're like, "Can we come?" I'm like, "Absolutely, come on down." Lighthouse, Sugar, Snake River, and South Fremont. Those were the two that got caught up in the accident on the way here, and they had to turn around and leave, and that's too bad because we were excited to have them, especially playing teams that we don't get to see very often. Gooding, Oakley, Murtaugh Valley, Canyon Ridge, yes, and Jerome. And so it was a really good field, and it was some really good volleyball. And and like you said, Sugar came out on top, and Sugar's off to a really good start this year. They're 9-5, but they came down here and they got the job done. So, and it was fun to watch them play.
That's awesome. That is a bummer because Snake River and South Fremont are two really good 4A volleyball programs. So just from a competition standpoint, that would have been a lot of fun. But another Jerome invite in the books, and hopefully next year you get the full complement of teams, Scott. Make that bracket a little easier.
No, I don't think there's any question we will. That tournament has really turned into something really kind of cool, a lot of stuff going on as far as, we're bringing in, taco trucks and shirts and blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of vendors and things that are happening around it. And so it's going to be a good one moving forward.
And I believe it was last year. I think it was at the Jerome Volleyball Invite. It might've been the Jerry Callen Memorial Tournament you do for girls basketball, but somebody hit a ball out of bounds and it knocked over a soda and you had to hurry up and mop it up.
Yeah. No, that was volleyball. And it was Gooding that did it. And it's funny because they did that. And not only that, they shortly after hit an errant ball and it broke the trophy. And
that's right.
Yeah. So not only are they spilling soda all over the floor and I'm cleaning it up, hands and knees, they break our trophy. The funny part about it is every single one of them watched the podcast. And I remember as I was cleaning this up, they're all just giggling. And one of them just kind of whispers or kind of under her breath to me, goes, "Are you going to mention this on the podcast?" I go, "You're dang right I am." And then it wasn't shortly after that they broke the trophy. And I'm like, unbelievable. You bet all this is going on the podcast. And we did, and they all listened, and I saw them again about a week later somewhere else, and they were just giggling and having a great time. But that was a fun time, and I'm glad you brought that up. I forgot all about it.
Yep. Well, we'll leave the Gooding volleyball team alone for this week, but we are going to talk about the Gooding football team because they traveled over to Boise on Saturday to play in a series of games at the Blue Turf, Albertson Stadium over there at Boise State University. Gooding took on Parma. Not only did they get to play on the Blue Turf, Scott, they got a pretty convincing victory as well.
Oh, they did. Beat up on Parma, and it was one of those things that really kind of flexed the muscle of Gooding. I mean, they held Parma, I think, to just 10 yards rushing as a team. And, Gooding got off to a slow start. It wasn't kind of what they anticipated. They gave up a 75-yard touchdown on the first third down of the game. Coach said we were not in love with that start. And then they followed that up. They fumbled on their first offensive drive. So, I mean, it was just really kind of one of those, just everybody calm down and forget where you're at for a moment. This is a football field. Relax. And then they did. And then after that, they just cruised. But, I've seen this Gooding team play, and they are going to be interesting to watch because they have a huge advantage over a lot of teams are going to play because of their physicality. You think about Gooding, you're thinking about the O-line and their tight ends just dominating the line of scrimmage. And that's what they do. And they've got a two-headed monster in the running back. They've got two running backs that just run behind them, and they just push people around. It's a physical Gooding football team.
Yeah, and I'm sure it was an eye-opening experience to be out there on the Blue Turf where every kid grows up and dreams of playing as well.
Yeah. Oh, it was. And, you talk to the coaches and the kids about this, and it's just an experience they're not going to forget. One of the players, one of their comments was, hey, I was prepared all week like it was going to be a regular game, but when we pulled into the stadium, it just gave me the chills. This is not a normal experience, and that was kind of the vibe that they had. Heads on a swivel, and they, and Gooding brought everybody. They brought their JV and their varsity, and they brought every football player in the program with them because they wanted them to experience that. And they weren't able to get a locker room, but they kind of put them in their practice facility as their locker room. And boy, they were gawking at that too. And they were going, "Oh man, this is better than what we play on at home," whatever it is. So they were, in love with that part. And then when they went actually onto the field, they took about 15 minutes to just be fans, right? It wasn't about football for that first 15 minutes when they stepped on for warmups. It was about just taking in the atmosphere. So they were out taking pictures. They weren't thinking about football. And I think that is such a cool but necessary thing that the Gooding coaches did, just because if you don't do that and you don't give them that time in that kind of environment just to soak it all in, then they're going to be soaking it all in when they should be playing the game, right? And so they gave them that 15 minutes, and after that it was like, okay, all right, we're down to business. And so that was kind of what happened. And the last thing they said too was they weren't prepared for how loud the PA system is. He goes, down on the field, he goes, when the announcer came on, we couldn't hear ourselves talk. And they said, wow, that really blew us away. But he goes, that is something that our kids and our coaches are never going to forget.
That's a cool deal for sure. Now, when the schedules first came out this summer and we were putting them in at IdahoSports.com, it was a triple header. You had Melba and Coal Valley Christian. They kind of played in the late game. New Plymouth and Fruitland was the kind of the middle game. Gooding and Parma was the first game. Well, when the original schedule came out, it was a different game. Columbia and Caldwell were supposed to play in that first game. I'm not sure what happened along the way, but Gooding and Parma got slotted in there, and I'm sure Gooding is thrilled that they did. So they're off to a 2-0 start, wins over Jerome and Parma. They play Caldwell this Friday, and then they are at Mountain Home on the 20th. They've got a great shot, Scott, to be 4-0 before they dive into conference play.
Oh, absolutely. Their non-conference schedule, I think they have a really good opportunity just to roll right through it. But then you look at their conference, and boy, it's a pretty solid conference there too. We talked a little bit about Buell last week, and how Kimberly, they finally got a win, but before, they were the best 0-2 team in the state, right? Buell, Gooding, Kimberly, solid, absolutely solid. And they play Buell at Buell October 4th, and they could easily go into that game undefeated.
I really think 3 teams from this league will make it to the playoffs this year. I feel pretty good about Buell. I feel pretty good about Kimberly. That third spot, Gooding, Filer, Wood River, I don't know. It's going to be determined among those 3 teams, but to watch them all duke it out, I think is going to be really fun. So,
yeah, it certainly will. And I think you got to give the nod right now to Gooding, but we'll see what they do in the rest of their non-conference. Right now, Caldwell's really struggling. They're 0-3 and they haven't even scored a point yet. So I'm not sure that's going to give Gooding the best gauge on how good they really are. After that, you're going to get into Mountain Home, and Mountain Home, they're 0-2. They got thumped twice, once by Minico and another one by Buell. They got Canyon Ridge this Friday. So again, I don't know how strong that one is. So they may not get tested until a little bit later in the season, and that could end up hurting them because, they cruise their opener, they cruise through Parma. They're going to play a really struggling Caldwell team. Mountain Home has been blown out twice. And then after that, they could be 4-0 with really not having been challenged, and then go into Buell. That would be interesting.
Yeah, and they're going to get the last two games, Filer and Wood River. That's going to kind of define their season. I feel like you feel pretty good about, okay, 4-0, and then probably we'll drop those. If we're just looking, objectively, Buell and Kimberly are maybe a little ahead of Gooding right now in terms of where their program is at. It's going to come down to those last two games. I don't mind the idea of building up, a non-conference schedule that gives your team some confidence, because it's been a couple of years. Really, the last time Gooding, was a factor on a statewide level was they had a guy named, Loveland at tight end. that was the last time Gooding was really and it's been a couple of not down years necessarily, but years where they haven't been at that level. So if you're trying to rebuild the program and build it up, I'm okay with, having a little runway in the non-conference where you can build some confidence, knowing then that, hey guys, when we get the league play, the level's going to be up a notch. We got to elevate our game as well.
Yeah, and they're going to have to do that because, their first 4 games, like we talked about, are against teams right now that are 0-2. There's not one win in any of those teams that are the first 4 on their schedule, and so they've got to do a really good job of, conveying that message to the kids that, you step into Buell and you get into that conference play, it's going to be a whole different ballgame.
For sure. Well, no matter how the season shakes out for Gooding, that memory of playing on the blue turf over there in Boise will last a lifetime. That is for sure. All right, sure. Scott. Yep. All right, Scott, that'll wrap it up for this week's edition of the Magic Valley Prepcast. What do you got going on this week? What you got events coming up at Jerome?
Oh, you know what? It's actually a slower week than normal because everything is on the road. I mean, we have freshman football tomorrow in Jerome, and we're taking on Minico. Varsity will head over to Minico on Friday night. Soccer games sprinkled in here and there, but kind of a mellow week as far as the events in Jerome go. So, man, we need those because last week was oh my word, it was organized chaos, but it worked. But yeah. Great.
Yeah.
So,
definitely.
we're going to be after this week, we're going to be 3 games in and almost at the halfway point of the football season, which is insane how fast that goes.
Yeah, it's crazy how it flies by. Programming notes here on IdahoSports.com. Our Magic Valley game night this Friday night should be a fun non-conference battle. Kimberly hosts Homedale, Scott. Okay, Kimberly's rough and rugged schedule continues Friday night on IdahoSports.com. That'll be a stiff challenge for the Bulldogs for sure.
Oh, no question about it. I mean, we know about Kimberly. We kind of know what they're about. This Homedale team, though, man, they are just some good, strong, tough, farm kids that are perennial favorites every year. And, they're in that really weird conference where they've got Fruitland and Weiser and Payette, McCall Donnelly. But this is a Homedale team that has really done well to start the season. They got a win to open against Snake, big win there, and then the shutout victory against Filer, and now they've got Kimberly. So that's going to be a test. And Kimberly, as good as they are, could start the season 1-3, but we'll see.
It'll be a lot of fun. And then during the day, Scott, on Friday, IdahoSports.com will once again be broadcasting the Tiger Grizz Cross Country Invitational from Freeman Park over in Idaho Falls. I actually have to travel over there tomorrow. I got to break up the journey over a couple of days because I live far away from everything now. But it looks like there are 5 Magic Valley teams set to go compete at the Tiger Grizz Cross Country, including your Jerome Tigers, Scott.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we've got a good contingent of kids headed to the east to run in this thing, and it's something that we look forward to. And it's a really good litmus test of what's out there, especially on that side of the state, because it's a really, really big race.
Yep. Jerome will be joined over there by Burley, Canyon Ridge, Mountain Home, Raft River as well and Twin Falls will be there too from the Magic Valley. So if you have a favorite athlete that's running on Friday, all 6 varsity races will be live streamed starting at noon on IdahoSports.com. We take great pride in doing that every year, Scott. So,
and how did you get to draw the short straw to travel all the way from northern Idaho to get there?
well, everybody's traveling. Paul, Logan, we're all coming. We're all meeting in Idaho Falls Friday, so it's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, my word. Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, have fun with that. It should be a good time.
Yep. One last comment before we duck out here. Joel Richardson from the East Idaho Prepcast. That'll be tonight on IdahoSports.com. Shout out to the Magic Valley homies. Scott, tell Brandon we need a game together. Look at that. You're already on the request list, Scott.
Hey, there we go. I like it. You got it, Joel. We'll talk to the powers that be and see if they can put us together.
All right. It sounds like a plan. Until then, thanks for tuning into the Magic Valley Prepcast, everybody. For Scott Burton, I'm Brandon Baney, and we will see you right back here next week for another edition of the Magic Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.